Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is SEC Fanatic. I'm your host, Matthew Johnson. If you haven't watched before, again, this is just SEC news, interviews with athletes, and then I also like to throw in a crazy sport. I'm really excited for this show today. We have a lot of great content for you all today. It may be a little long, but I think it's going to be interesting too. Well, just to give you a heads up of what we're going to do, we're going to start off really quick and just skim over a few new rule changes that I think were important enough to be in here. Voice. That I think they were important enough to be in the show. And then we also have the player of the week, of course, and then we have preseason preliminary. Today we're going to be taking a look at the football teams of Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. And then, what I'm really excited for, and I hope you are all too, we have MMA fighter and former Kentucky fullback, Mr. Isaac Stackhouse. He will be on as our guest for this week, and so I'm really excited about that. So stick around for that. That's going to be a really fun interview. Okay, so getting started on the rule changes. First is the transfer rule. One of the big points of that is that colleges can no longer block players who want to transfer out of that college. And so there's a lot more that goes with that rule, but that's the big piece to that rule. And so you can go check it out. I think someone who covers it longer and really well is is a show called The Three-Man Front. It's done by three former football players, and you can go check them out on iTunes. I know they're on iTunes. I don't know if they're on SoundCloud, but I know they're on iTunes. Okay, and the second one is the redshirt rule, and that is essentially saying now players can play 4 different games their redshirt season and still maintain that redshirt. And so that's going to be really useful for those players to get some more experience and playing time without sacrificing that red shirt, and will also probably be helpful for those starters who need a break. Moving on to our player of the week. His name is Luke Alexander. He's from Belmont, Mississippi. He's a junior. And the reason that he is our SEC Fanatic Player of the Week is that he scored the home run that sealed the 1-0 victory over Washington for the College World Series from Mississippi. For more information on Luke Alexander and the College World Series, check out secsports.com. Not a sponsor, but they just have really good information. Okay, I'm kind of trying to move real quick here, just trying to move on to our big 2 topics today, the things that are going to take some time, and that is preseason preliminary, which is up next, and then our interview with Mr. Isaac Stackhouse. But let's go ahead and hit our preseason preliminary first. Taking a look today at Ole Miss and Vanderbilt as they prepare for the 2018 college football season. Last year, Ole Miss went 6-6, 3-5 in the SEC. His 2017 issues have largely to do with their self-imposed ban. They were not able to be eligible for a bowl game, and like Tennessee, they had a lot of off-the-field issues. They had a lot of troubles getting anything done on defense. They allowed an average of 270 yards rushing every game. So, huge holes on the defense. The offense wasn't terrible. They got stuff done on offense. It's kind of a good, not great scenario with the offense. As far as 2018 hopes, Matt Luke, the head coach, they're going to need to look for more experience from him because he's no longer that first-year head coach. He's going to be able to have more knowledge and be able to get stuff done now in his second year. There's going to be no bowl game this year again, so finding motivation for this team is going to be another challenge this year as well. Without a bowl game to play for, this team's going to have to find a way to motivate themselves to get wins. A big positive is going to be the fact that they get wide receiver A.J. Brown back, and large amounts of people everywhere regard him as a extremely good wide receiver. If you just go and watch The plays he makes, he's definitely a game changer. So that'll be a huge bonus for Ole Miss in this 2018 season. Defense is still going to be a big question. Is the defense going to be able to buy into the physicality that the coaches are trying to preach to this Ole Miss squad? As far as 2018 week-by-week season predictions, I'm using SG1 Sports. That is a YouTube channel. And we're not doing a collaboration. It's just no one else wrote it. No one else did a season prediction except for SG1 Sports. And so here it is. SG1 Sports 2018 season prediction is for them to go 6-6 with wins over Texas Tech, Southern Illinois, Kent State, University of Louisiana Monroe, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt, with losses to Alabama, LSU, Auburn, South Carolina, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State. So moving on to Vanderbilt, last year they went 5-7, 1-7 in the SEC. Their 2017 issues were largely on a defensive side, which is kind of disappointing because their head coach is a defensive-minded person. They had a hot start with that Kansas State victory, but then their loss to Alabama began that downward slide, that downward trend. I think after that Alabama game, they seemed to be a little deflated. As far as 2018 hopes, unfortunately, not a lot seems like it's going to change. You do get your quarterback back, Kyle Shermer, but you lose Ralph Webb, their power horse running back, and you lose a good amount of wide receiver core. You lose people from defense who are in key positions, and so unfortunately for this 2018 team, it does not look like that much is going to be able to be improved upon. Vanderbilt does have athletes, though, I will say that. It's not like they're, completely helpless. They do have athletes who play for them. To be able to have any kind of success in 2018, they need to improve and to not falter when they hit adversity. If something else happens to them like Alabama, they need to be able to pick themselves back up. The defensive and offensive line, of course, are the two big questions. Offensive line doesn't have all those players leaving like other positions do, but they were very inconsistent last year, and they need to find a way to become more consistent this year. And the defense has lots of holes to plug up. They were not efficient last year. They've got to find a way to be efficient this year. And so if you notice, through all these teams that are unsuccessful, offensive line and defense are the two keys that when those don't work, the team doesn't seem to work. So if you're looking to become a coach, get a good defense and a good offensive line. No one that I found has actually released a 2018 prediction week by week as of today, as of filming. And so, for the first time, here's the SEC Fanatic week by week prediction for Vanderbilt in 2018. I predict them to go 4-8 with wins over Middle Tennessee, Nevada, Tennessee State, and Kentucky, with losses to Notre Dame, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Arkansas, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. The good thing that is the positive thing for Vanderbilt for this is you do have a couple games that could be close. Ones that I myself was 50-50 on. The Kentucky game is 50-50. The Ole Miss game is one that they could win. Tennessee is one that they could look to win. So there are a few games down there that they could win or lose. And so if they won all those 50-50 games, say they take Kentucky, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, well, now they're 7-5, which would be a good turnaround. But again, their schedule's not the best. They've got a lot of issues to fix, so I don't see them going more than about 4-8. So those two teams are looking to rebound. Agree or disagree? Do you? Do you agree or disagree? Let us know in the comments. Good luck to these two teams. All right, so moving on to what I have been very, very excited to do, and that is the interview with Mr. Guest, with our guest, Isaac Stackhouse. All right, we'll send it on over.
Cool.
Okay, so we're here with Isaac Stackhouse. He's a former Kentucky fullback, does jiu-jitsu, and he is the host of the podcast, The Daily Stack. So just getting started here, how did you get started in jiu-jitsu?
In jiu-jitsu, well, as you said, I played fullback at Kentucky, which I ate like a fullback. And so when I got done with playing football, I just kept eating the same way, and I gained a lot of weight. And when I started looking for ways to get in shape, I've never been one of those guys that like could just go to the gym and work out. And so I had been introduced to wrestling one time. I went with a buddy to like a wrestling club thing up there in Kentucky, like during the off season, and just got completely reamed, just got thrown around everywhere, like just shown a fool. And then so that kind of stuck with me, and I had a buddy. I had been a UFC fan like through high school, and like it was kind of first breaking out because this was like 2009, 2010, so it was like right when it was kind of coming to mainstream. And I had a buddy that trained jiu-jitsu, and I called him up and I was like, "Hey, where do you train this thing that you talk about jiu-jitsu?" He's talking about how much fun it was and all that. And so I went and trained with him, and we rolled for 2.5 hours in this old, like it was a Taekwondo school that they would let us train in after hours. So it was like 9:30 at night, 5, 6, 7 dudes. Everybody got in there, slapped hands, and just started rolling, and I fell in love. Like I've loved jiu-jitsu ever since. But so yeah, I started to lose weight is why I started. But it succeeded. I went from 270 to I compete now at 170. So
whoa.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of a difference.
Just a wee bit.
So one of the questions I received a lot from people, because I kind of went out and asked everyone what, if they could ask, an MMA fighter one question, what would it be?
Yeah.
One of the biggest questions that they asked was, what is your workout routine?
It varies. It really depends on what I'm working on in my game at the time. Me and my coach Andy were actually just talking about varying up some differences for this upcoming camp. There's 2 differences. There's in camp and there's out of camp. Like in camp is I know I've got to fight, usually anywhere from 8 to 4 weeks away, and it's every single day, 3-4 times a day, something like lifting weights, yoga, jiu-jitsu, sprinting, distance running. Like it just varies, whatever I'm trying to do. Currently right now, like my schedule goes kind of I do jiu-jitsu at 6:30 in the morning. Then I either lift or do like a circuit. I swap those out every other day. Yeah. And then I'll usually do some sort of sometimes I'll grapple a second time, depending on how many people are around and whatnot, because there's differences in MMA fighters at levels too, because at the level that I'm at, I have to, and where I'm at, I have to like train when other guys are available to train. Yeah. So like, I'm like, ooh, this guy's really good at jiu-jitsu and he's free for the next 3 days. So we're going to do as much jiu-jitsu together as we can so I can, learn from him and do all that. So, it's a very paying attention to my cardio, but also trying to build on my strength and stay lean and stay in shape and stay healthy too. So okay, and then everything just trickles down from there to skills-based training. So,
well, what makes MMA and jiu-jitsu important for you?
Wow, that's a broad question. Let's see. MMA and jiu-jitsu for me, I actually touched on this on my podcast the other day. For me, I'm there for a specific reason, like for a feeling, and that feeling is inside of mixed martial arts or jiu-jitsu matches, like high-level matches, you get to this point of clarity that you don't really achieve in any other way. And like you ever hear like football players talk about like when they're like in the zone and there's that one play where time slowed down and all. Imagine that happening over like a 15-minute period. That's what like an MMA fight that goes all 5 rounds, that's just a knockdown, drag out, barn burner. Like you know before the guy's moving what he's doing. You're inside, like you're thinking, and it's tunnel vision, but you can kind of see it from the outside. Like it's a totally different headspace that you can get to inside of this sport. That's why I do it, and so that's really ultimately to challenge myself to get to that level. So that's where it's important to me.
So is there a lot? So there is a lot of like mental stuff that goes into a match.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of times that like jiu-jitsu is referred to as like chess with your body. I mean, you're playing chess with the guy. You're sitting there, and it may look like that the guy's sitting there. Like if the guy's a common position where there's one guy on his back with his legs wrapped around your like midsection, that's called closed guard. And that's considered a neutral position. So like both guys have some advantages there. It looks like you're just sitting there. Two black belts sitting there, they're going through 15 million different possibilities that could happen at any given moment. And if one of the guys slips up just a centimeter, it snaps into a submission. And the best way that I put it is take your favorite team in the middle of the World Series, and it can all be over in a split second. And that's how the combat sports like jiu-jitsu and MMA, the guy that's winning the entire fight can just lose, just out of the blue, nowhere. It's over. No redos, no reviews, it's over. So it's a very, very mental game.
That's interesting because I never, because you assume fighting and you think it's just fighting. I never really thought about how much mental stuff goes into it.
Most definitely. It's you're having to overcome a very high, like the anxiety and the big. I mean, you're going in to be locked in a cage to to punch or be punched. I mean, it's a very primal, for lack of better terms. But like when you get inside the head of what it takes to overcome that, and then keep the wherewithal to do really complicated, like jiu-jitsu moves and high-level Muay Thai guys or kickboxers or boxers. I mean, those are complicated movements that you're pulling off in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
So it's a very cerebral endeavor.
Well, switching gears a little bit onto your time as a fullback for Kentucky, what was it like for you to play SEC football?
I very quickly learned that I was very small. I joke with my coach all the time now about how I wish I had discovered a like weight class based sport earlier in my career, but I walked into my first day at Kentucky and looked around the locker room, and I mean there were kickers there that were bigger than I was. So it was a blast. I wouldn't trade it. It opened my eyes to some things. I learned a lot about like myself and kind of where I was trying to head, but and it really opened my eyes to where like the big picture of the sports that are they're a business.
Yeah.
And my first week there, I saw a guy that he had a tendency that his shoulder would like roll out of socket, and like middle of camp, like they cut him because he was a potential risk for them on like how much it would cost. So like it very quickly realized that like at the NCAA level, like this isn't high school, like trying to like these guys are making money off of this machine. So it was a very interesting, eye-opening experience. But I loved it. I loved meeting the guys. I played with Randall Cobb from Green Bay. Like he was. I was lockers across from him. Danny Trevathan, who plays at where is he now? He's at Denver, I think. He was playing right outside linebacker at Denver last time I checked on it. But and so it really kind of changed the sport of football for me too, because I'm not like people talk about like being fans of sports and teams and stuff. It's like a lot of those guys, like I know them, so I'm like, I'm gonna watch them this weekend so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a lot more of a personal fandom.
Yeah.
So what's it like to see these people who like Randall Cobb, who are these big stars, and to have played with them? It's
one of those things that like, which Randall's a really cool guy. Like I knew him pretty well. Like he was around, but he kind of blew up, and at the time that was when around when I went on the road
Yeah.
and started going to different schools. I used to joke with my dad that I was a Rhodes Scholar, ROAD, because I went to like 5 different schools before I got done. But those guys, it kind of, with the going back to the MMA stuff too, of when you meet these guys and you realize that like a lot of them are just another guy, just a dude. In football a lot, and I noticed in like in other professional sports like basketball, football, like those guys sometimes, like you meet those guys and they're just monsters. And like MMA, it would be like if you met like Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
Like just this gargantuan of a human being. Like you're not even human. Like that's what. So to take those guys and them come down and like play video games with them, it was kind of a weird place to be at 18 and kind of to grow up and learn that. So it's really funny to look out there and see. I remember texting my cousin a picture it was recently after we had all graduated and when Randall had been drafted. And I was walking through like an Academy Sports and I saw like a cutout of a guy that I know, like just standing there, and I'm like, that's funny. So, but it makes them humanizes kind of those people, and it kind of makes it to where it's not that unattainable to be somebody like that.
So for those who may not necessarily know what a fullback is or does, can you just real quick describe?
Man, it's a dying breed, honestly, especially when I was coming along. I don't really know where it's at these days because I'll be honest, I'm terrible about keeping up with actual specifics on the sports. But the position is basically to either protect the quarterback, lead for the running back, or to get that last little inch. Yeah. And I always loved playing it, and I didn't start running the ball until I was a senior in high school. So I played defense, and I didn't play. I didn't go back into playing football. I started in Pee Wee, like everybody does in Alabama. Yeah. And then like I swam from my entire high school career, like as a competitive swimmer. And then my 10th grade year was when I was like, I want to play football. So I started playing football in 10th grade. And so I played defense, and then all the way up until my senior year, and then I carried the ball one time for like 30 yards, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to play offense?" I was like, "Yeah." So like a lot of the things that I've ended up doing in majority of my life has just been me being like, "Yeah, sure." So like that's kind of how that ended up happening. But the I forgot which question was with the last part.
Just what is a fullback?
Oh, but as a fullback. In Alabama at a 1A AISA school, like I was telling you, that I went to a tiny high school that was country. I mean, we played smash mouth football. Like I got to Kentucky and didn't know how to run a pass route. Like and was a running back. Yeah. So like, they looked at me when they were like, run a skinny post, and I was like, what? I don't know what that is. And so like I had to be like informed on how to run pass routes as a fullback, and I actually like majority of the guys. I played behind John Connor, who played for the Jets for a while. Yeah. I don't know where he is now, but he had one of the seasons he had more passing yards than he did rushing. So like I said, it's a dying breed. Yeah. But But as a fullback, your job is to, in college, you get to do the outside. And that's where I was, the most that I enjoyed was being able to do the chop at the knees. Yeah. Because you don't get to do that in high school. And then, like I said, I came in, I'm the smallest dude in there. There's defensive ends that are like, so much bigger than me coming around there. So like being able to chop block and stuff like that. But the fullback, they're just hard nosed. That's what they were. They were the middle linebackers of the offense, kind of thing. But nobody really lines up with a fullback anymore. Or really, I mean, you could argue that the running backs are becoming the fullback. Like there's running backs now that are the size of linemen. Yeah. Like, yeah, but they run a 4.5 or 4, like ridiculously fast. Yeah,
which is scary.
Yeah, terrifying.
So, moving on, I have, oh, yes. Before we get to fan questions, real quick about your podcast.
Yeah.
The Daily Stack.
Yep.
What inspired you to start that?
Well, the Daily Stack itself started out with I've kind of started wanting to shoot video and shoot different things, and so I launched a vlog trying to launch the brand, and all this kind of revolved around my fighting and my jiu-jitsu kind of stuff around the same time. I tell people all the time, I wish I had started doing this type stuff before I was as I was getting into it, because there are missed moments in those first because I've fought 13 times. So like in those first like 6 fights where I wasn't filming and I wasn't like catching the behind the scenes type stuff, like I really, really wish I had some of that stuff, because that's some stuff that's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
But so that's where the Daily Stack came from. It was a vlog style type thing that I put out 175 videos with that, and that's on YouTube. That's still up there. But I stopped doing that and kind of was trying to rethink what I was trying to do and where I was trying to head. And I really have. Podcasting has been. I've been listening to podcasts since like my first iPod when I was in like junior high.
Yeah.
Like so like podcasting and even before then, I mean, my dad would get these things in the mail that were called trends.
Yeah.
And they were these CDs that had like future. They were talking about like what people were investing in and what people. So my dad would drive me to swim practice as I was growing up, and he'd listen to those at 5 o'clock in the morning on the way. So I'd lay there half awake listening to them. So I always had a thing for like audio. We listened to audio books. Like we were a family that traveled a lot, and so like we listened to audio books
on the way there.
So like I started thinking about all that, and that's where podcasting just kind of, that's where I ended up falling out the bottom with the Daily Stack. My last name, Stackhouse. Yeah. So my nickname everywhere has always been Stack. And somebody, when I was coming up with the video series, was like, why don't you call it the Daily Stack? Because I think Gary Vee or somebody like that was like a big deal around that time. So so like they were talking about like daily, and so I ended up with the Daily Stack.
That's cool. So yeah, moving on to fan questions. Again, like I said earlier, I went out and I kind of just asked, if they could ask an MMA fighter one question, what would it be? Yeah. Some of these are going to be serious. Some of these are not going to be so serious. But cool here we go. The first one, what is your diet like?
My diet? Well, depending on, like I said earlier, there's the in-camp, out-of-camp. Mostly what my diet is whole, real food. So, eggs, greens, chicken, fish, broccoli, the leafy like collards, or like anything. I stay on the outer. I saw somebody on the other day of the best way to eat right is to stay on the outside of the supermarket, like on the outside aisles. Don't ever go through the middle. So. And that's out of camp. Like that's when I'm just not really tracking it. And then so now what my diet is I eat basically clean that way, but I track my macros. And so like the macronutrients, where I eat as many calories as I can in clean food, but it has to match this nutrition profile. So that's kind of what I've recently done, because I used to kind of do the low carb thing to like cut down and like but it's really hard to sustain, and so like I've been working with some different like diet tricks and stuff to kind of help myself be at the optimal lean eating, but not like crashing type thing. So it's worked so well so far. So I've managed to, the biggest thing, like I said, I lost all that weight, and I've managed to keep most of it off. I slipped up one time and I jumped back up to like 215 at one point, but I had a moment where I was like, I need to keep down in the competition weight. So, but yeah, the diet, it's always kind of trying to just fuel the machine is kind of the way that I take it, is just eating as cleanly as much real food as possible.
Okay. Have you ever been knocked out? Is another question.
Yes, I have been knocked out twice. I got knocked out one time by a switch. Ooh, they were both switch kicks, but the first time was a switch kick from my buddy. I say my buddy. We fought twice, and this is where the sport is really weird. People think, oh, you fight each other, and you see like Connor talking trash and Colby Covington out there talking trash and Chael Sonnen. Like, man, most of the guys that I've fought, I'm cool with. Like, there's like one or two guys that are kind of like they're just offstandish about things, but most guys, like, it's a sport. We're out there for that. But that guy, he kicked me, and that's the hardest I've ever been kicked. He kicked me with a switch kick to the head that went right over my hand, and I took just straight shin to the temple. And props to that guy. He took that fight on, I think, like 24 hours notice. Oh, wow. I cut weight without an opponent. Like, I didn't know who I was fighting the next day. But that's just how amateur MMA kind of, it's wild west sometimes. But, and then the second time was I had a recent fight down in Florida where I was fighting a guy, and we exchanged real good. It was a real fast-paced first round. And then in the second round, he basically just kicked me over and over and over and over again, and a few of them slipped through. And he had kicked me, and kind of everything had turned sideways, and I was kind of like, I actually ended up with a ruptured eardrum after that fight, where his foot slapped my ear, and so all that was happening at once, and he caught me again, and I got knocked out. But MMA, like, briefly, real quick on the knockouts. Yeah. MMA is very different than boxing. Boxing, you take those kinds of shots, and then you get a 10 count. You get to stand back up. MMA, both times that happened, I think it might have been the same ref. No, they were different refs. But the both refs, both times, were protecting me, and they can tell, like, you're not protecting yourself, and your hands dropped, you're out of it, you're not gonna, so there's no need to get more damage. So the sport of MMA is very, very, very safe when it comes to that. And I know I'm talking about getting knocked out when I say that.
You're safe when you get knocked out.
But it's very much the refs that I've fought under protect the fighters. So,
speaking of kicks and punches, the next question I have on here from someone is, what does a punch sound like?
So, what does a punch sound like as far as, are you saying like when you watch the movies and you hear that pow, or are you saying like on the receiving end?
Let's go receiving end.
Okay, on the receiving end, when you just eat a punch, usually sometimes you'll see a flash. And for me, sometimes I'll see a flash and then hear like a high pitch ringing, or as my best friend likes to say, like, I have this Neanderthal forehead up here that, like, I'll just bite down on a mouthpiece and headbutt somebody's fist as they punch me, because like there's just this thick piece of bone right here, and that sounds about like a coconut that doesn't break. Like, you can hear it inside your head. This sounds like brain trauma happening as I say it. As I say it, I hear it out loud. But no, like the sound of a punch is nothing like what you think it is. And really, most of the time, especially when you're going up against really high level guys, or like a high level boxer that has like really fast hands, you'll just see a flash and like something you think is noise, and you're like, what was that? Or if you go against a guy that's like a really good kickboxer, you ever see the Zohan, where they're like the feet coming up? He's like, is that your feet? Like, you're just all of a sudden getting kicked, and that's the both knockouts I never saw coming. Like, I just woke up. Like, so.
What is your craziest story while fighting? Is it the knockouts, or do you have some that are crazier?
Man, I got all kinds of funny stories. Like I said, 13 fights is a lot of fights, because that's 13 fights in right around 2 years. Like, I crammed that all in like really, really, really fast. So like one of the craziest stories was well, not craziest. Like one of the funniest stories I think I might have been telling this on my podcast the other day, but we were it was my second fight, and this guy came out and he swung for the fences. And he was kind of gangly.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like respect his distance because I didn't really respect his stand up. So I learned a lesson there of like always respect somebody's like a 2-year-old can knock you out if they hit you right.
Yeah.
And so he swung a big overhand and I mean just wrecked my nose. Like my nose like sitting here staring straight on you can probably see is a little curvy. And because it's been broken a bunch. And he broke my nose. I felt it all crunch. And it was one of those fights where I spent majority of the time on top of him, and we were over in the corner up against a wall, and I was beating him, and I couldn't in Alabama or in Florida at that time because that was Florida. You couldn't punch to the head for the first 3 fights. Yeah. When you were on the ground, so like it was only it's really dumb rule. I'm so glad. I think they've gotten rid of that, but it's a really dumb rule. And so I was sitting on top of this guy, and in order to keep the action so that the ref wouldn't stand us up, I'd have to like turn around and like hit him in the stomach a couple times and then keep doing jiu-jitsu up here, and then like turn around and hit him in the stomach a couple times and like keep doing jiu-jitsu up here. And at this time, like I'm leaning up against the wall, and an important back note of between rounds, I had been sitting in the corner, and I was like, I can't breathe through my nose. And Andy's sitting there talking to me, like trying to coach me and like tell me what's going on. And he's like, rubbing ice on my neck. And I reach up, and he has the white towel, and it's the white towel from like the hotel because we had forgotten a towel, so we brought the hotel towel, and it was hanging from his shoulder. And I was like, I can't breathe through my nose. And I reached up and grabbed the towel, and as I like went to blow my nose, I hear Andy like, "Don't blow your nose!" And I'm just blood all in this towel. I was like, "Oh no!" All right, and so at that point they start clacking, and you have to stand up, and they're like, "Come on!" They shoo your cornermen out. Your cornermen have to wipe up all the ice that they've spilt, and like everybody like gets out, and then you go back to it. And now we're back to where I was up against the cage on him. And I was pinning him down in what's kind of called a knee on belly, where like he's on his back and I'm pinning him down with my knee, and I'm like sitting up, and I'm trying to get an arm bar. And for whatever reason, my head was turned, and I like exhaled really hard. And when I did, there was a lady sitting like like not even 3 feet off of the cage, and she was working on a MacBook. And the reason I remember it was a MacBook was because the keyboard was white. And I just see this blood shoot out over this lady, and I'm like, somebody get that lady a towel. Like this is all happening inside of a fight. Like there's probably shout out to our guy Dominic that puts on great MMA fights down at the coast down in Destin. I think there was probably like 3,500 people in that fight. So like it's a big venue. Yeah. So what I'm talking about is that wherewithal, that awareness. I'm in the middle of a fight, and I'm like, somebody get that lady a towel. Oh yeah, and like going back to it.
Back to fighting now.
But that's one of my funnier early on stories of if your nose is clogged in a fight, don't blow it because you're just gonna end up with this waterfall.
Well, to end this out, I'd like to play a little game. At the end of my podcast, I always like to throw out a crazy sport. And the crazy sports I throw out are always real, as far as to my knowledge. But what I'm gonna play, what we're gonna play, is a game to where you have to guess if the sport that I'm telling you is real or not. Some of these I've had on my podcast. Some of them I have made up completely and everything about them.
Maybe they need to become a sport.
Maybe they should. One of them is, the first one here is Sepak Takraw, and it originates in Malaysia. And basically what it is it's a game of volleyball that you can only hit it over the net with one hit, and you cannot use your hands. What do you think? Real sport or not?
So is it like soccer? Like you have to kick it with one, and so it has to go over one time?
Yeah.
I think it's a real thing.
It is a real thing.
That is a real thing.
I
feel like I saw this on YouTube somewhere.
It's really crazy to watch too, because you see like these people who are just doing like flips and hitting this ball.
Yeah. I've seen that. It's nuts.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I feel like it was just the Malaysia people who were sitting there like, this volleyball thing is boring. No hands.
No hands. Or maybe it was a guy without hands and he was like, yeah, that's really cute what you do, but watch this.
Okay, so the next one up is German bat ball. It's like baseball, but the ball is the size of a melon, and instead of hitting it with a bat, you basically just punch it.
With
your fist.
With your fist? That can't be real.
It is not.
Okay.
It was, I think it's from a book. I wrote down, here it is. It is from the Sirens of Titan. I think that's a movie or book or something.
I can't say that I'm familiar with that one.
It's not real.
Okay.
Next up is Calvin Ball. And it's a game made up at... I just gave that away. So we're going to move on to the next one.
All right, yeah.
So, cheese rolling. What this is, runners run after a block of cheese down a hill.
I'm gonna say it's real.
It is real.
Because humans are crazy.
Yes, we are.
What part of Europe is this in?
It is in the British Isles and Wales.
All right, yeah. They have got a lot of time on their hands, cheese chasing.
Not sponsored by Cheez-Its. But yeah, they just stick a block of cheese on the top of the hill. I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube.
Would it be a block of cheese or would it be a wheel of cheese?
It's a wheel of cheese. Yeah. A block of cheese
wouldn't
really roll down.
That'd be kind of a boring day.
Yeah, they stick this wheel of cheese, they roll it down, and then you have thousands of people just running down this hill.
So is the goal to catch the cheese?
Yes, the goal is to catch the cheese.
So how big is this wheel? Is it like, are we talking like...
From what I've seen, it's pretty big. I think it's human-sized wheel of cheese that they're running after.
Wheel of cheese. I'm a cheese fan, but that's a lot of cheese.
And of course, they roll it down this huge steep hill, so like everyone's running after it, and some people are tripping, and some people are trying to fall.
So it's solely for the mass entertainment. It's kind of like running with the bulls. Like we're here for the entertainment value.
We're just here to run after.
We're just here to watch people get gored. It's kind of like NASCAR. You just watch people till they crash.
Yeah, pretty much.
To me.
This next one is wife carrying. A man carries a woman through an obstacle course.
I have a feeling that's real.
It is. You are on a roll. Not cheese rolling, though. Wife carrying, it is a real sport. I don't know where it originates from. I tried to find it, and I couldn't find its origin. But yes, it is a real thing. Next one up is rollerball. It is soccer, basically, with a metal steel ball, and you play it while you're skating on rollerblades. Or in some cases, ice skates.
So it's like hockey.
Yes, basically. But instead of it being with like a hockey puck and sticks, they just decide to use a steel metal ball.
That sounds entirely unsafe. I hope it's real. If it's not, it needs to be.
It is not, unfortunately. It is from I think it's a movie. It's called Rollerball.
Yeah. That was from the, oh God, was it in the 90s?
Oh, since I've never heard of it, probably.
Yeah. I think it was in the 90s. Oh my God, I'm going to go watch that.
All right, last one. Chess boxing. It is...
That is a real thing, and I've watched it.
It is a real thing.
It's in Russia, isn't it?
I think so. It's definitely not in America, but it's interesting. Isn't it like... So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically just box until you get a knockout or you get a checkmate in chess?
It's the way that I remember it is the one that I saw is you box, and then instead of going to your corners, you have you box for like a 3-minute round, and then you have like a 2-minute chess round, and then you have a 3-minute round, and then you have like a 2-minute chess round. So to have to bring your brain, but you're operating on the same level, like I said earlier. Especially like boxing, there's a reason it's called the sweet science. Yeah, like that's a very mental game. So to pair that with chess, I wonder if they do jiu-jitsu chess. That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Do like a jiu-jitsu match where you do like a round and then chess. I should pitch that.
How would you play that with a broken nose, though? Yeah, blood like dripping over your.
Yeah.
Funds
You need like glass pieces that you
Yeah.
like hose off between rounds. Be like, and then make sure nobody's bringing like a knight back into the ring.
Yeah,
Then you gotta
that
take
wouldn't be
your gloves
good.
off. It would be cumbersome, I would imagine.
Yeah,
But
it would still be interesting to watch.
oh, trying to have a conversation inside of a corner. That's the part we were talking earlier before we started about my fascination with audio.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the last couple fights we've done. I've made sure that me and the coaches that are in the corners or whatever have cameras in I have like little GoPros that are like on our chest and picking up the audio. We've never been able to like replay our conversations in the corner, and they're hilarious. Like I'm coming out of a fight having a conversation with essentially my best friend and being like, "Yo, bro, like what's going on out there? Like what are you like?" So those conversations getting replayed are really kind of interesting. So like to have to play a chess game in that moment, I can only imagine. I know I've said some dumb stuff in the corner, like this. I don't know, playing checkers.
Got your double skip. Wait, I can't do that.
Start playing shoots and ladders. There we go.
Got it.
We're gonna start a jiu-jitsu league that's gonna be jiu-jitsu and Candyland.
Yes. Sounds good to me.
I'm down.
I am too. Let's do it. Well, all right. That's all I have.
Cool.
Thank you for coming.
Enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you, Isaac. Okay, so this week's crazy sport is race walking. What this is, it is a real Olympic sport. Yes, so it's a real Olympic sport. There's a lot of technicality actually to how this person walks. You have to, there's a lot of specifics, and I don't want to dive into those too much because there are a lot, like I said, of specifics. It's becoming much more of a popular thing, actually. All existing records for it were broken, or almost all, one or the other. Existing records were broken in 2012. If you would like to find out more, Google it. Oh, it's a great thing. If you want to find out information, type it into Google and hope that it's not lying to you. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. This has been SEC Fanatic.